Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Introduction to National History Day in Indiana webinar. Thank you for joining us tonight for the kickoff of our Fall National History Day in Indiana webinar series. My name is Brianna Durkin, and I am the Specialist of Education at the Indiana Historical Society. Before we begin tonight, I just want to cover a few housekeeping things. This webinar is being recorded and will be available for you after tonight to refer back to. We will pause periodically for questions, but if you have questions at any point, please feel free to type them into the question box on the right of your screen. I will answer them throughout the session, and we will have an open time at the end for discussion and questions as well. I've got a few handouts for you all tonight, and you'll have access to those after the webinar. If we have any questions before we dive in, we can get to those. Otherwise, we will start. Okay, doesn't look like we have any questions yet. So what is National History Day? National History Day is an international educational program that was founded in 1974. Currently, it is based out of Maryland. They work with each affiliate to designate an organization who will be in charge of running that program. In Indiana's case, that is the Indiana Historical Society. The national office is in charge of managing the international contest, running educational programs throughout the year, and determining things like the contest rules and annual theme. On the state side, the Indiana Historical Society has been home to the National History Day in Indiana program since 2002. The program itself has existed in Indiana since 1980, so we've been around for quite a bit. National History Day in Indiana, or NHDI for short, is the Indiana affiliate for the national program. It is project and inquiry-based learning for students in grades 4 through 12. For the project itself, students look at primary and secondary sources to develop a research question or their thesis statement. They are learning how to argue through facts. Students have the opportunity to present their findings at a regional, state, and maybe even national contest. While the program brings a fun competitive element to doing historical research, ultimately the goal for the project is to help kids analyze historical events. We want them to answer the so what question, why is their topic significant? Through the project, students will work on time management skills, presentation and communication, critical thinking, analysis, research, identifying source bias, collaboration, and more. There are many moving parts to the project overall, which helps students build this variety of skills, but our job here is making sure this process is as painless and fun as possible. One of my favorite things about this project is that it is completely customizable to each classroom and even each student. I'm going to talk a lot tonight about the various rules and limitations of the program as dictated by the national level, but I want to emphasize that these rules and limitations apply to only those who want to go on to contests. This project is, yes, all about the kids, but also all about you and what works in your classroom. For my purposes, students can choose any topic they want, but if you are teaching U.S. history and want to limit it to U.S. history topics, that's perfectly fine. Students have chosen to look at topics in environmental issues, culture, art, science, literature, music, sports history, politics, and so much more. My other favorite part about this program is working with the students who absolutely hate history and finding a topic that is really truly interesting to them and sparks their passion. We like to advise that topics are at least 20 years old so that there is enough time to gain perspective on those topics, but otherwise they can choose from whatever interests them. We have had 5 project types for students to choose from, but if you only want to work on 1 or 2 of those types, you can limit your students to those categories. We will also get into each of those project types tonight and rules associated with them, but unless you're going to a contest, those rules don't matter. If you're working with a class where a 500-word limit for an exhibit is difficult, change it to whatever suits your class. Almost all of our projects can be done in groups of up to 5 students. I have had teachers limit their group size to only 2 or 3. Some of their students sign partnership contracts, some have encouraged larger groups. Again, it is whatever works for your class. The max group size for a contest is 5 students. Even the time that you spend on this project is entirely up to you. There's no magic answer to when you should start doing the project in your classroom. Some schools start immediately and commit an entire semester to it while working on it gradually a few times a week, while some classes wait until January and do a 3 to 4 week cram session. Regardless of when you start, your students can still make national quality work. Again, it's all up to what works in your classroom. But most importantly, contest participation is completely up to you and your students. I hope you go on to contests, as it is a great opportunity for your students to share the hard work that they have done. But it is completely understandable that with everything these students have going on, taking their projects to competition may not be entirely possible. Regardless of participation in contests, we love to see students engaging in historical research, and whether or not they participate in contests is entirely up to you and your students to determine. Do we have any questions so far? Okay, if there's no questions, we'll move on. So let us move on to the annual theme. Each year, Nationals determines an annual theme that all projects tie back into. It's a way to ensure some equality among all of the different affiliates, as well as gives repeat students an opportunity to look at topics in a new light. This year, our annual theme is Breaking Barriers in History. No matter what the theme is, I encourage students to look at multiple perspectives. For example, when the Transcontinental Railroad was built, the Chinese workers undoubtedly had a very different view of the barriers than those of the businessmen making the decisions. I encourage students to think outside the box or go deeper. Yes, we broke a barrier by putting a man on the moon, but what about looking at the scientists who developed the technology that led to him being there, rather than the man himself? This is a good way to make well-known topics stand out a bit more. You take a well-known topic and look at it from a slightly different angle. Finally, they should be able to demonstrate the significance of their topic. Why were Rosie and the Riveters significant? Why is it important that women got the right to vote? What does it all mean? And most importantly, how has it impacted us today? The theme this year can seem really daunting. Trust me, I've been wrapping my head around it for months and still sometimes have trouble finding the barrier in some historical narratives. Some ways I've found to think about the theme are to look at the ways that barriers can be broken. Someone can be the first to do something, like be the first man on the moon or the first female entrepreneur. A barrier can be broken by a law being changed or created, such as the Americans with Disabilities Act prohibiting discrimination against people with disabilities, or the appeal of an amendment. Ideas can be barriers and can be broken or put in place. These may include things like restrictive clothing or changing fashions, gay pride parades breaking barriers to celebrate LGBTQ. Barriers can be physically broken, such as a landing force invading a country or the development of the world's fastest train. Both individuals or groups can break barriers through their actions. You can choose to focus on the group as a whole, such as the suffragettes, or zero in on one particular individual who had the most impact. There can be a barrier that needed multiple actions to be broken, or barriers that are still in the process of being broken, such as breaking the glass ceiling and the continuous improvements for the rights of women. There are a lot of resources for thinking about the theme, including topic suggestions that we will all get into. Nationals also has a recorded annual theme webinar that can be found on their website. Do we have any questions about the theme? Okay. So what actually makes up an NHDI project? Projects need something called a process paper, which is a 500-word reflective essay where students are answering why they chose their topic, what problems they had creating it, what their research process was like, and how their topic relates to the theme. This is a great thing to incorporate in your classroom as a reflective exercise on the project. For contests, a group project only does one process paper. The second thing that they need is their annotated bibliography. Sources can be cited using MLA or Chicago, whichever you already use in your classroom. Their sources are split out into primary and secondary sources. Finally, there are some project-specific rules that we will go into. Again, I just want to reiterate that everything I've said doesn't have to be a part of the project unless you want to go to a contest. If you're working with students and doing a full annotated bibliography, and you think doing a full annotated bibliography is too much, and your kids aren't going to a contest, then you don't have to do it. All of the project-specific rules I'm about to go into are adjustable based on your classroom's needs unless you go to a contest. However, if you do end up going to a contest, then these rules just need to be adhered to. So our first project type is the historical paper. It is a 1,500 to 2,500 word essay. This includes the student's own words as well as any quotations that are used. It does not include footnotes, appendix information, or captions. Information should be cited throughout the paper. Students can use footnotes, endnotes, or inline citations, whatever fits with the style guide that you are using. They should be consistent. An appendix is not required for the project. If a student uses an appendix, it needs to be referenced in their paper and only include photos, maps, charts, or graphs. What I love about this category is that it can be a traditional research paper or it can be creative fiction. Regardless of which option, it still contains the same basic elements, an argument supported with information. The only difference is whether it's presented in a creative story or through a research paper. Though there are plenty of opportunities to work in a group, this is the only individual-only category. Our second category is performance. There really aren't a lot of rules when it comes to performance. Again, it has the same basic elements of an argument supported by sources with the student's interpretation and analysis. The performance is a max of 10 minutes, and students have 5 minutes to set up and tear down their set in addition. Students can use technology, costumes, sets, props, and anything that they'd like. This category can be done individually or in a group. I have an example here from 2018 where a student, Catherine, brings her performance as an elderly National Park Service employee giving a tour of John Adams' home and then transforms into a hologram of John Adams himself. I will be playing about the first couple minutes of it, but we will also have these links available to you, so you feel free to go onto this link here at any time and you can watch the entire thing. Okay, that was our example of a performance. Our next category is documentary. Just like performance, students have 10 minutes for their film and then have 5 additional minutes to set up and tear down. Students must provide the narration, voiceovers, and any dramatizations that they used. They can use professional photos, film, and music, but they must include it in their credits and in the fully cited bibliography. Each documentary should include credits where the student just briefly lists where they got their sources. For example, if they got their images from the Library of Congress, the National Archives, and several collections from the Indiana Historical Society, they only need to list the organizations in their credits, not all of the collection information. We have a webinar coming up on October 29th where one of our teachers will actually be diving into how to create good documentaries with tips and tricks for success with them and low cost to free tools that you can use in your classroom. I'm going to be showing you just a bit of an example documentary. This was created by Sophia, who's pictured here, who found her topic because she likes to ride horses as a hobby. In fact, she actually placed sixth place in nationals this past June. Again, I'll be just showing a little clip of her documentary, but if you would like to see it, the link is down here and you can go to it at any time. Okay, that was our documentary category. So our next category is website. For websites, students are limited to 1,200 student-composed words. This doesn't include things like quotations, brief credits of images, reoccurring menu titles, or navigation bars, alternate text on images, or any coding used to build the site, or their annotated bibliography or their process paper. These are all the student-composed words that are found on the site. The greatest thing about website is that students can incorporate up to 4 minutes of audio and visual elements, which gives them a lot of opportunity to share elements of their topic without eating up their word count. Just like the papers, websites are due early so that they can be read ahead of time by judges. In the past, we have used Weebly, but starting this year, we will have a new website platform that is launching 1 month from today on November 1st. So until then, students are encouraged to work on research and planning. We'll be sending out some more info on the platform as it becomes available. We have a few examples here to show you what websites can look like and what some of our students have done in the past. Reminder that these examples are made on our old platform Weebly, so the formatting might change slightly with the new platform. But the customization options will remain largely the same. This first website was one created by Emmett. It placed 10th in nationals this past year. What I particularly enjoy about this one is his clean design. Information is broken out into more digestible chunks. As we see here, we have his thesis and then little chunks of info on each page. These digestible chunks make it a lot more easy for you to follow. Our next website here is one of my favorites from last year. It is by Grace and Jessica, and it is a good example of finding a unique topic as well as building a beautiful website. While not many people know about the Greater Prairie Chicken or Francis Hammerstrom, they did a great job of building their background information and selecting the pieces that were most essential for understanding the significance of their topic. So we have all of their background info here, and they have it all divided up based on each part of their project. Since a lot of people don't really know about the Greater Prairie Chicken, there's a lot of background on the different types of birds and the conservation of birds, which is largely what the topic was about. And they also used audio and visual media in all of their website to make sure that they're getting the point across using all these different methods that are unique to website. And then finally, we have Janani, who is right here. This is her website. She placed 5th in nationals this past year. She used a lot of unique elements in her website. A lot of it is more interactive, which is also unique to the website experience, such as this timeline here. You can click on the photos, you can click through the timeline. You can enlarge a lot of this and save a lot of this. You should be able to. She also has a lot of audio throughout her website, which also contains a transcript, and she uses a lot of primary sources throughout. So our final category is the exhibit category, which is by far the most popular category. There are size requirements that each exhibit has to stay in, but otherwise, the look of it is entirely up to students. They can be as creative or simple as they wish. The challenge with exhibits comes with the word limit. So students are limited to only 500 student-composed words, which includes things like their titles, their subtitles, captions, graphs, timelines, and any supplemental material. Along with looking however they would like, they can also incorporate up to 3 minutes of audiovisual elements. Doing a successful exhibit requires more attention to detail than writing skills, but it also requires being able to get an argument across, relying on those visual elements to help tell the story. This exhibit was done by Morgan and Nanditha, who placed fourth in the nation this past year. They did their exhibit on a turntable and incorporated an audio element in their conclusion. Rather than describing in written word the impact of eugenics, visitors were able to put on headphones and listen to the subject of their exhibit talk about the effect of eugenics that eugenics had on her. Some other examples of exhibits include this one on the left, where they created a silhouette display to complement their topic. On the right, these students used a more simple design but offset the elements of their turntable. They included a little box here, where visitors could answer the question, "Do you feel that the policies enacted after 9/11 have made us safer?" They provided pens and a paper, and after presenting at nationals, they donated those responses to the Indiana Historical Society. On the left here, we have a simple trifold display, but it supplements it with objects that are related to their topic laying on the table down here. This one on the right uses a shadow box. I don't know if you can see it very well, but that's glass right there. They use a shadow box and lights, but it still kind of retains that trifold shape. This is all just to give you some examples about how an exhibit can look. There are many more that you can find online, but when you're looking online or searching this on Google, just keep in mind that all those look pretty impressive, but they are examples of our students who moved on to nationals. And this is the final stage of each of their projects. At the beginning of their development, these exhibits may not have looked so perfectly well done. Many exhibits will go through a lot of changes as they develop and get feedback from the judges and us after each contest along the way. Do we have any questions about the project type so far? Oh, hold on. Oh, the documentary didn't have any audio. I'm sorry about the no audio in the documentary. I didn't see that right away. The link is on that. I can go back and I can show you the link if you'd like to take note of the link. It is available on YouTube. So if you would like to watch it after this is over or whenever you'd like, it is available at all times. It's a good documentary. I suggest watching it. I really liked it. Okay. So let's move on to the contest structure. So we divide our contests up into 3 divisions. There's the youth division, which is grades 4 through 5, the junior division, which is grades 6 through 8, and the senior division, which is grades 9 through 12. Students only have to compete against other students in their own division. We have 5 project categories. Every category except historical paper can be done as an individual or as a group. Just like the division, only students in the same category will compete against each other. So an individual with an exhibit will not be up against a group exhibit, for example. Um, so all projects begin at the school level, where we have over 7,000 students create projects around the state. Students can then go to a regional contest. We have about 1,800 students compete in 7 different regions around the state. We then narrow down to about 550 students for the state contest, and from there we get down to about 65 who go on to the national contest in DC. So each of the regional contests look about the same. Check-in usually begins around 8 a.m. and judging will usually begin about an hour after that at 9 a.m. It'll usually wrap up about noon, and the award ceremony will take place around 2 so that there's room in between for judges to eat lunch and to judge all of the projects. We only have 1 round of judging in the regional contests, but if you move on to state, there'll be an additional final round at the state contest. So this is an example of the kind of feedback that students receive from the judges. It consists of a series of check marks and comments designed to help students identify with what they did well and where they can improve on their projects. Students who move on in contests, like from regional to state, are allowed to use this feedback to improve their projects if they choose. In fact, we encourage all students moving on to take this feedback and use it to their advantage to improve their projects before the next time that they are in contest. So the check marks are divided up into the three different areas. The first area is the major portion of the project, which is 60% of the project, which is scored on the historical quality. It should be accurate and students should have done thorough research. We want them to have looked beyond the first 5 links on Google. They should have used available primary sources. We don't expect students to pay money or travel or have to dig deep for these sources, but um, if it is available and free online, we hope that students have attempted to look at it. If a student says there aren't any photos out there of the Holocaust, well, we've got some places for you to look. Our job outside of organizing this whole program is to be here for students and teachers every step along the way. If you need help finding sources, reach out to us. We want students to be balanced in their presentation. Again, this comes into those multiple perspectives. We want them to have considered their topic from different angles. We also want to see that they've put some thought into their analysis and interpretation, that they've gone beyond the Neil Armstrong broke a barrier and landed on the moon idea and have looked at the significance of that event. 20% of this of their score comes from the relation to the theme. So, does their project explain why the topic relates to the theme? Have they put it in historical context? You can't just pluck the Treaty of Versailles out of the context of World War I. You have to understand the war to understand why the treaty and its terms were the way that they were. Finally, we want to see why the topic is significant. It doesn't matter if it's local, national, or international. If you can't say why Anne Frank is significant, then it doesn't matter that she's well known. Some of the best projects we've seen are local history topics that explore a connection to bigger movements, such as local suffragettes and how they helped propel Indiana into the national suffrage movement. The last 20% of their grade or of their score comes from the clarity of presentation. We want to see that the students have used spell check, maybe had someone else look over their project, and that it's easy to understand. We want them to be creative, but not at the expense of historical quality. Really, 80% of the project comes from history. It's kind of the important part. If the contest and the potential to move on to nationals isn't enough of an incentive for some students, we also provide cash prizes. We are offering 29 different cash prizes this year for projects related to Indiana's history. There are all kinds of topics that we are covering with these cash prizes, from the history of Madam C.J. Walker to international history to Asian American history. There's so much to choose from. Um, these these cash prizes are awarded at the state contest, so students will have to make it to the state contest in order to be eligible for them, but they do not have to place in first, second, or third at the state contest to win a special prize. These prizes will range from $100 to $1,000. There's a full list that'll be coming out with the handouts that will be sent out after the webinar, but there is also a full list up on our website. So where are the contests? Our first contest is going to be in February, and our last regional contest is held on March 19th. So we have contests in Fort Wayne, Mishawaka, Franklin, Carmel, Evansville, Hanover, and downtown Indianapolis. Students can attend whichever contest is most convenient for them, with the exception of the IPS contests, which are specifically for IPS schools. So long as one group member is able to attend, a group entry can still compete. It costs $10 per student to participate. Any students that advance to the state contest do not have an additional cost to participate, so that $10 will get you through the whole thing. And the state contest will be held downtown in Indianapolis on Saturday, April 25th. So this is a little bit daunting. We're not trying to pretend otherwise. It's a huge project with lots of pieces and parts involved with it. We are here to help you, and we love making the process as easy as possible for everyone involved. We have 2 more webinars coming up. On October 15th, we'll be partnering with Allen County Public Library to talk about how to do digital research. And October 29th, we'll be looking at how to make a documentary. These are both free, and you will get the recordings if you register for them ahead of time, just like this webinar tonight. Um, we also provide free in-class visits around the state. We can come in and assist with literally any part of the project you want. So if you're stuck on narrowing down topics, or you can't hammer out those thesis statements, or you need in-depth feedback in preparation for a contest, that's what our team is here for. Again, it's all free. We come to you. You just let us know when and where you want us. The only caveat to that is weather. So if weather makes it so that our team can't safely reach you, we will do everything we can to either reschedule or provide digital feedback. So you send us the projects and we will send you back feedback over email. You and your students can send your projects or questions to us at literally any time, and we will provide in-depth feedback to them. We also have an NHDI guide, which covers all aspects of the project. You can pick and choose any parts that are useful to you and your students. There's also a student version of the guide, that is the core information and just the worksheets. We also have project examples up on our website from previous years, so you can see some of the work that Indiana students are doing. And it's important to remember that those are the finalized examples that come from nationals. So that is the end goal of what you're trying to reach. A lot of projects in the early stages don't look that caliber. So we are drawing close to a close, but we are going to share some of our favorite stories of kids that we've worked with in the past. So on the left here, we have Kara, who had some hard times in her personal life during her freshman year. She has told us that her project literally saved her life as she was able to relate. She explored the history of the Donner Party, and she said that it helped her see how others struggled in their lives and still emerged on the other side. She had never traveled out of the state before, and she got to join us in Washington, D.C. for nationals this year. On the top here, we have Lily and Sophia. They are best friends who took 2 entirely different routes with their projects. Sophia was the one in the documentary before. She used her interest in horses to inspire her project. Lily was flabbergasted at the rise in white nationalism in the country, and particularly in her school. So to better understand the world around her, she looked at the history of the KKK in Indiana. Both projects made it all the way to nationals, and even though only one of them made it into finals while the other had not, they supported each other through the whole process. Chloe, down here in the middle, is a senior in high school this year and has gone to nationals 5 times now. She's never placed higher than in the top 30, but each year she says she learned something new and that winning isn't important to her. Having the opportunity to share something new that she's learned is important to her. Finally, Katie here on the bottom right is the person who is in the performance that I showed. She lives with depression and anxiety and specifically had trouble doing performance because of this. After having a panic attack during the middle of one of her performances, she paused for a moment, collected herself, and carried on. She purposely chose to do performance so that she could be able to work on her public speaking skills. So not only did she get through that panic attack during her first performance, she made it to nationals and she placed top 30 in the nation. The skills your students will explore are unique to the experience you tailor to them. This is a lot of information that we've thrown at you tonight, but I will reiterate that we are here to help with all of it. Our job is to break down this process and assist in any way possible. I encourage you to follow us here. It's listed up here in the top right on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So we share daily tips and tricks, We share resources from around the state that'll help with research, and we post reminders about upcoming professional development or NHDI events or anything that we might find helpful to the process. Do we have any questions now that we are at the end of our time tonight? I'm going to stay on the line just a little bit longer in case any of you have questions. If you don't have any questions, or if you have questions that come up later on tonight as you're laying in bed unable to sleep, feel free to email us at this email down here at the bottom. We are available for you at any time. Okay, if we don't have any questions, feel free to email us at any time. Like I said, we are here all the time. We will be able to answer up all those questions that you have, especially if you feel overwhelmed right now and you can't think of what you want to ask. This recording will be available for you guys after. I'm just seeing now that we also didn't have sound on performance, so that link is also back here. If you would like to watch the performance, that is also available. I'm sorry, I did not see that there wasn't any audio right away. But those are all available for you guys to watch as well if you want to follow those links. And if there are no more questions or no questions for the rest of the night, I will be letting you guys go. Thank you so much for coming and watching our webinar, and don't forget to sign up for the other webinars if you are interested in learning about making a documentary or research tips. Thank you guys. Have a good night.